And a very warm welcome to our college. This morning we're going to have a real treat, and we have Minister Judith Seaman giving us a talk on touching the God force. Minister Judith Seaman is Vice President of our union, a wonderful worker, and I just know that we're going to have a brilliant time with her during this next hour. So it's over to you, Judith.
Thank you, Jeanette. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So we've already had choir practice. That's got you warmed up, hasn't it? And if you looked at the words of that hymn, you can see why they connect with this morning's talk, can't you? Because for me, the God force, touching the God force, has always been part of my life. From I can't remember when. When I went to Sunday school, before I went to school, I remember the Sunday school teacher saying to me, "Where is God?" And she said it to the whole group of us, not just to me. And I answered, "He's in my head, miss, because he talks to me." And she thought I was a very strange child, and she never asked me the question again. But I just always had that, and I don't know how, where, what, why, but I always had that feeling. And ultimately I discovered that the words that came to me were coming from the spirit world. But that God power has always been so important in my life. And I'd like to start this session by just reading to you a short quotation from a gentleman called J.J. Morse, a powerful pioneer in our movement, one of Mr. Stephen Upton's favourite people who he brings into our ministry lots of books about pioneers and brings them up to date. And J.J. Morse is one of those pioneers. And the quotation is, "A spiritual religion is the realization that God, nature, and humanity are one glorious, wondrous whole." How's that for a quotation? The power in that makes us realise. And my favourite quotation comes from the Lyceum Manual. I don't know if you know, the Lyceum used to be, and still is, if you like, the Sunday school of spiritualism. Not so much now do we have the Lyceums, but the Lyceum Manual, a wondrous source of quotations. And my favourite is, "All are but parts of one stupendous whole, whose body nature is, and God the soul." And you might have noticed in that hymn, I managed to get my stupendous whole into the words there, because it's my favourite quotation. Just think of that. All are but parts of one stupendous whole, whose body nature is, and God the soul. And that sums up exactly what Morse was saying there, that once we can recognise the power of God in life, it will make a difference in our lives and in our world. It will. And so I'm just going to ask you to do something. I know this is meant to be a talk, but it's a cheat, because it's not a talk. Because I'm going to ask you to just take part in this, just a little bit, if that's okay with you. And so to begin with, I would like to just ask you to be still. Just to be still. And to take a breath. And to feel the presence of God. And then just feel what's happened in this room, how the energy has changed. Can you feel that? And all it needed us to do was to just be still and feel that power of God. Tell me, what did it do to you? What happened? How did you change? Tell me.
Calmed.
Calmed.
Peaceful.
Peaceful.
Centered.
Felt tingly.
Felt tingly, yes, excellent. What else?
Felt more centred.
More centred. And what did we do? We just took a breath and felt the presence of God. Wasn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
That we could do that in that moment and feel that power. And if we think about our life, we are here, we chose to come to this world, to live an existence, to spend a time in this physical presence. But throughout that time that we are here, living in a material world, dealing with material issues, we are still spirit. We are still of God. So let's take a look. How much time in a day do we focus on our material existence?
All of it.
Percentage? 99.9.
80%.
80%. How much time do we spend focusing on that part of us that will live forever? Kind of puts things into perspective, doesn't it? Okay, so we are meant to be in this physical world. We chose to come here to learn lessons. We are told that in the spirit world, like attracts like. We are with people of like mind. Here, in this world, we are with people of every kind of morality, every way of thinking, and so we can learn lessons here that we can't learn in the spirit world. We face challenges here in this life. And I have something that I've come to terms with, that challenges are gifts from God. They've just got somebody else's name on the gift tag. Yeah, because it's people that seem to challenge us, but from those challenges we grow. Challenges are like rain, because we'd love to live in a world of permanent sunshine, but nothing would grow. When the rain comes, everything grows. And so challenges are of God for me, enabling me, facilitating me to learn, to grow, to deal with those challenges. And so, again, something I say often, a gift is not a gift until you give it away. So I see those as gifts. And I am the receiver of that gift, that challenge. And it's how I receive it and what I do with it. Have you ever given a gift to someone and known that they didn't like it? Yes, yeah. What did they do with it? Maybe they put it in the next raffle. Maybe they sent it to the charity shop. I don't know. But what if they stopped and thought about it and did something else with it? And that's what we need to begin to see in our life. The gifts of God, the challenges, the presents that are given, and how do we accept those gifts? For as giver and receiver, where does the responsibility end and start? As the giver, where does my responsibility begin? In the choosing of the gift. Yes? Where does it end?
Giving it.
In the giving of it. So I, and I'm sure maybe you, have after we've given something and realised the person didn't like it, we didn't let go. We worried about it. You understand that? But no, our responsibility ends when it's given. It becomes the responsibility of the receiver. And so God's gifts are given to us. So our responsibility is as the receiver. And sometimes they can be beautiful, magnificent. Looking out there, what more beautiful gifts could we wish for? But then sometimes they're challenging. But they're challenging so that we can grow. We can deal with issues in this world. Let's look at it from a different perspective. In this world, each of us have our own path to follow, our own life to live. But we are also part of the collective whole. Sounds like the Borg, doesn't it, from Star Trek, part of the collective. Anybody watch that? No? Yes. But we are part of the evolutionary pathway of mankind. What we do and how we think, together collectively, moves the pathway of mankind, and has done throughout time. And man creates issues. Man makes wars. And yet, we pray to God to make peace. Doesn't seem to make sense to me, that. Does it to you? Because man make the wars, and therefore we must make peace too. Because this is our responsibility, to take part of what is happening here through the creative way that we use God's power. That power is there for all of us, and how we use it in our lives makes a difference. There's no question of that. Let's think, how do we use God's power in our lives? The little hymn that we sang talks about healing. So, wonder how people think when they say, oh, I do absent healing, I send out thoughts. I wonder if they actually think that the healing is just their thoughts. What do you think? No?
It's quite a lot of yes.
Yes, that's true. But your thoughts alone can't make that happen. Can't do the wondrous things that healing can do. When we think about how the power of healing, and I know this firsthand, could take a broken ankle and whilst the person slept, change the molecular structure of that bone, soften it, realign it and allow it to set again. Perfection. Could your thoughts do that? No. What power can do that?
God's power.
The God power. The God power. That creative energy that lives in every cell of our being. Every cell of our being has an intelligence, has the God force within it. That's why you heal when your finger cuts itself. You know, when you cut yourself with your finger, it heals. There's an intelligence there. That's the creative power of life that's working all the time, and we take it for granted. But we don't use it as much and as well as we could do. Now, I'm not suggesting that we all give up life and go and pray in a monastery somewhere, though that might be nice sometimes,
Yeah.
just to have a little bit of space. But I'm talking about living with that power. Not pulling away and becoming isolated, but just how can we bring that into our life without becoming holier than thou, just being us, but recognising that touch of the God force, that power. If you wanted to learn to speak another language, well, how would you go about that? You'd go to someone who would teach you, and I know how I did it when I went to live in Spain. We had the most awful teacher who would hold up cards of pictures and would say what they were. And we're living in Spain, remember, and he would hold up a picture and he would go, El Igloo. A word you really need in Spain. Yes? Yes? And so he was a terrible teacher. But this is how we learned, eventually. And El Cocodrilo. You don't find lots of those in Spain either. It would have been better if we'd had El Cockroach rather than El Cocodrilo. But we learn by repetition, by putting our mind to something. And after a period of time, you think in that language. Yes? That makes sense?
Yeah.
How do you learn to drive your car? First time I sat in the car and I thought, this is a long time ago. Goodness me, pedals, handles, all of this. Now when we drive, do we even remember the driving as we go from A to B? It's just part of us. What if the God force could be like that? What if we could live our lives normally, but remembering intuitively that power of the God force? So how do we get there? We need to make some time to practice, like El Cocodrilo, El Igloo. We need to just make a little bit of time to practice so that we recognise, just when we started, and I asked you to be still and take a breath, if you could do that occasionally throughout the day, could you see what a difference that could make to your day?
Yeah.
Just a breath and be still. What if you're all stressed out and things are all going wrong? What could that breath do? Change it, bring that stillness, maybe help you to see a way around the problem, just in that moment, an inspirational thought to help you to see the way forward. What if something was happening that you felt lost and you just didn't know which way to turn? And you could just take that moment, that breath. Could that be just clearing the mind enough to see the way forward? Just that breath, symbolically, just taking a moment, as long as it takes to draw a breath and be still and feel that power. And if we could do that from time to time, then it becomes part of us. Like learning to speak a language, learning to drive the car. It becomes something that we do, that we bring it into our life. So that's for us. I use the God force for self-healing. When I now go to God in prayer, I don't have any words. I've been through, from Sunday school, learning the Church of England catechisms, and I learnt those off by heart, because when I could recite them, I got points in my book. And what do points make? Prizes. I had not got a clue what they meant. No one explained them to me, but if I could recite them, I got points, and points meant prizes. So my early prayers were very formulated by what I was told. And then we move on, and we kind of go through, maybe you have, the shopping list prayers, where we feel obliged to ask God to do this and to bless that and to do this and to do that. And I began to feel that these were just words again. So over the course of my life, I've gone through lots of approaches to prayer. But I've come to the point now where prayer for me is wordless. It's just being still and being with God. And in that energy and in that power, I use it for self-healing. I just allow that pure love of the God force to flow through me, and I can feel it. Without doing that regularly, I could not function in my life as I do now. Because with the help of healing energy from the spirit world and friends who facilitate that for me, I keep going to carry on doing what I love to do, which is work for the spirit world, work for God, and be in that power and that energy. And I could, if I'd chosen, after my last major surgery, to just decide I'll become an invalid. And I'll sit at home and let people look after me. No. It's just not right, because that power is wanting to work and flow. Don't you feel like that? Sometimes you need to be cosseted, you need to be loved, but mostly you feel that you want to do something in the world, make a difference in your own lives and in the lives of others. And the way you can do that is through touching that God force, touching that God power, allowing it to take a bit bigger percentage in that time in the day. Make that shift from -2% to 2% and maybe just a little bit more. Not changing the way you live in the sense of changing your whole life, but just the way that you live it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Just beginning to recognise things a little bit differently. Not just taking everything at face value. But what about the presence? In that moment, we were still and we felt the presence of God. What about if you did that with people? What about if you took time sometimes with someone who perhaps is a bit difficult, to just be still in their presence for a moment and feel their presence? You understand what I'm saying? And know that the God force is just as much within them as it is within you. They may be going through a really difficult time and you don't know, but you will if you just feel that presence and you will recognise their needs. And by doing that, they will feel it. They will know that you are touching their soul. I'll tell you a little story. Many years ago here in the college, Glyn Edwards and I ran a course together called Living with the Power of Spirit. And it was very much about the sort of things we're talking about now. How to make a difference in your life. There are people who want to serve within spiritualism who don't want to be mediums. If everyone was a medium, the platforms would be full and the chairs would be empty. There'd be nobody to speak to. But we can be a channel, I not really like that word, but a source for that power to function just in everyday life. So we talked about that this particular course. And at the end of the week, we had a raffle. Now, let's be fair, where spiritualists come together, isn't there always a raffle? Yes? Have you ever known there wasn't being one? So we had a raffle. And in this raffle, the college shop gave a huge blue and white vase for one of the prizes. And a lady won it. And she'd come on the train, and all she had with her was her suitcase. And this vase was very heavy, but she was adamant it was going home with her. So she left the course, went to London on the train, changed in London for wherever she was going. And she wrote me a letter, and I have it still. And she said in it, I sat in the British Rail Cafe, brave woman, and thought, how am I going to get this case to the platform where the train leads from? And she said, I'm going to do it, I'm going to get into that power that we've been doing this week. And so off she went from the buffet with her case, and she wrote in the letter, 6 people offered to carry my case for me between leaving the buffet and getting to the platform. And she said, I hadn't done anything different. I didn't make out that the case was heavy, I wasn't doing all the limping job, and that had never happened to her before in her life. What was different? She just worked into that power, into that God force, and somehow people knew she needed help. I have the letter. It's the truth. It made a difference. Somehow, just by her presence, they recognised something. She touched them. And so I challenge you to do something. Maybe one day, choose a day when it's raining, when everybody's heads are down, and just fill yourself with that wonderful power, that light that is yours by divine right, because you are of God, and go walk down the street and see what happens. See how many people smile at you, or look up at you, or speak to you, without you even speaking to them. Try it. Don't believe me, do it. It works. How does it work? They are touched by that presence. They feel it. It's powerful. And you don't need to wear a placard to say, I am the God force. It's just there. So we can make a difference in our lives and the lives of others that we meet. And we can also use it for healing. Not just for ourselves, but for others too. Because when we talk about healing, perhaps we think mostly about physical healing. But what about healing people who just are stressed in a difficult time in their lives? Do they not deserve the healing just as much? Yes. And this God force is neutral. It's there to use. And so if we could build some power just by sitting and doing that stillness and that breath, and then bring that person just into that power and let them be there, that would be a wonderful gift, a gift from God that could help them in their lives. But let's take it further. Where do you think you, if you had a choice now, would like to make a difference in the world?
I'd like to home the homeless.
Yep, excellent. What other thoughts have we got?
Care for the elderly.
Care for the elderly.
I'd like to change myself because I believe that if I do that, then it will help others.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, the lady there.
reduce stigma for mental illness.
Yes, all of these things. Yes, what else? What shall we talk about? What about all the cruelty that's happening through the terrorism that's in our world? All the displaced people who've been driven out of their countries because of dictators or the dogma of politics. How many different things could we choose? The ones you've said. Do you think that using the healing power, the God power, could make a difference in those situations?
Yes. Yes.
So how do we address that? How do we go about it? People talk about sending healing to the world, but let me ask you something. I don't want to tempt fate, but if it was to rain, all those little
If he
drops.
does, I'm telling David, he said that.
Sorry. If it was to rain, all those little drops of rain, we could go out there and stand underneath. And okay, it wouldn't be too pleasant, but it wouldn't hurt us, would it? What if we then bring that rain down a drain pipe? And then if you stand underneath it, what's the difference in the force?
The power.
Powerful, isn't it? So, if we think of our thoughts the same, if we just send them out into the world, they're like raindrops. But what if we focus them on one person? One person who holds power to make a difference. So a leader of a country. And you might say, well, I don't want to heal him. He's a dictator, he's a this or he's a that. And that's the problem. Because if we are going to justify not healing him because of who and what he is, then we're choosing not to try and make a difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if we could focus that power on that person and make a difference, wouldn't that be worth doing? And we do that. 10 o'clock each night on SNUI, which is the internet aspect of the SNU, we meet for 30 minutes or as long as you want within that session, and we send power thoughts out into all areas of our world to make a difference. We do that. Recently, we focused on the medical profession and the people who are discovering different treatments to help conditions, and we focused the power to enable that, to try to allow it more so, and giving that power, focusing it to help them. We can work on anything to make a difference. And recently Stephen told me he'd been reading a book about one of the Irish mediums who talked about healing the personality. Oh, I can't remember her name, Stephen, and neither can you by the look on your face. It'll come back in a moment. And it was an old book that had been written some time ago, but she was talking just about that, about how you could heal the personality of someone. So what about using that as a power in our world? Using the God force to make a difference at the source of where the problems are, why the people are being displaced from their countries, why these acts of terrorism are taking place. If we could bring that power of God more into action in our world, then we could make a difference to the evolutionary pathway of mankind. Because together we become like the rain in the drain pipe. We become powerful. Doesn't matter where we are, like the choir. Unfortunately, we had a little choir before some of you came in, and we said we could continue, but you come from different places. So trying to sing in different places is a bit difficult. But sitting together to use the power of thought, you can be anywhere. Anywhere. When you go on the SNUI, people are there from all over the world coming in and working together to do that work, sending that God force out into different places, different aspects of life, to try to enable the God force to make a difference. And the Spirit world tell us that they are there waiting for us to facilitate their help too. The many words that come from them are, without you, our voice is silent on this earth. Now that's true, isn't it? without us to speak on behalf of the spirit world. They don't have a voice of their own. So isn't that make you feel important? That you can be the voice of the spirit world, or speaking the power of thought from the God force. You are so important. That's what they say. We are the many, but you are the one that enable us into your world. Because it's our responsibility now in our world. And it's no good asking them to do all the work. They provide the power, but we need to put that effort in to enabling that in our lives. And that's our role in utilising this wonderful work of the true power of the Spirit. The source of life, the healing power, can make a difference in everyone's life. But one more thing that it does. If you know you are going to live forever, and I mean know, not believe, but know, do you think that makes a difference to how you feel?
Yes.
Like I said, when I was a girl, I was taught these creeds. I believe in God the Father. I believe in this. I don't believe that I am spirit. I know I am. And once you know that, you recognise that you are invincible. Nothing and no one can ever destroy you. How does that make you feel? Does that make a difference?
Yeah.
But it's the truth. Nothing and no one can ever destroy you. That has to change. Immediately the energy is changing in this room now. I can feel it. I've just gone, ooh. Because suddenly you've recognised that. And that changes who you are and what you can do and how you can live your life. And that came to me on the day that I was ordained as a minister, because the gentleman who took that service, Minister Gordon Higginson, his reading for the day on that service was invincibility. And when he read that, it just touched me. It made a difference. And from that moment on, I absolutely knew I was spirit, without any question. And he told me afterwards, he said, I wasn't going to do that reading. And he said, on the last minute, I was inspired by the spirit world to change the reading and read that. And over the years, I'm sure he does know, even though he's in the spirit world, what a difference he made to me on that day by doing what the spirit world or whatever influence had moved in to read that particular piece. I just would like to just quote from the Lyceum Manual, if I can now, which I spoke about, my favourite quotation, but this is from the Lyceum Manual. The aim of spiritualism is to effect a complete at-one-ment and unison of man with God, until every action and thought of man is in perfect harmony with divine will. It's a bit of a long quotation, but it's very powerful. J.J. Moss says it a bit more succinctly, shorter, but still they're saying the same things. And also, if we go way back to the beginnings of spiritualism, before 1848, before the Rappings and the Hydesville phenomena, let's go back to Andrew Jackson Davis, who was a wonderful pioneer of spiritualism, and his words saying the same thing over and over again. And on the 31st of March 1848, though he had no knowledge of what was happening at Hydesville, he did say the words, a living experience has begun. And that's what this is that we are part of, a living experience. It's not just the mundane life that we came here to do, or sometimes it seems like that, a mundane existence. But in everything that we do, we could change it. We can put the sparkle in it by putting the God force in it. Yes?
Yes.
Not seeing that sparkle at the moment. Hasn't gone. So let's just think about that and let's put it back. Let's stop for a moment and take a breath and just be with God. And feel that presence. Just feel that power of God. Just breathe and feel that power and that presence. Be still and let God love you. And let that love surround you, fill you with light, with love, with sheer joy. And let that power build just a little more. Let your thoughts add to it. Thoughts of joy and love. And feel that presence. And then I invite you to choose someone who you know who is in need of God's love, God's healing love. And bring them into your thoughts now. Bring them into that power that you have built. Allow them to come into that presence, into that loving, healing power. Allow that joy to touch their souls. The light to lift them. And the love to comfort them. And just be still and let that happen in God's presence. And when you feel that the moment is right, and you know that they have received that blessing, just release them from your thoughts, knowing that that healing gift will go with them. That healing power will continue to work in their lives because you have created the connection. You have initiated that blessing of healing. And give thanks for it. And just release them from your thoughts. And then just notice how you feel. Notice how you feel now. And remember what it feels like. Anchor that memory in your mind. Remember what it feels like to have been in that presence of God, to have allowed that presence to help someone else. And remember what it feels like. And then I want you to just gently allow yourself to bring your thoughts back to this room. In your own time, nice and gently and slowly, remembering what you felt, what you experienced, but just bringing yourself back to the reality of the room. And have a think about what that experience was like. there is a saying that says, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I'm not going to ask you to do that. No. What I'm going to say is, if you're happy and you know it, wave your hands. Don't look idiots when we do that, but it's just expressing something. Because how did you feel with that little short time that we gave them to do that? How did it feel?
Simply beautiful.
Lovely. Did it feel fulfilling? Did you feel like you'd done something worthwhile?
Yeah.
Do you know how long that took? Less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes. How easily accessible is that power? Yes? And what we did there, all of us, was something very special. Anybody just want to share something at all personal that happened? Yes.
I feel like I was out of my physical carnate body. And I was still here, but I wasn't.
Yeah, you just shifted the focus. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Moving the focus away from physical material just for a minute into the non-physical, spiritual, and makes such a difference. So that's just that focus. That's all it is. Because you can't jump out of your body, but you can just shift your focus and feel different. Anybody else like to share? Yes.
I felt from the solar plexus just feeling that it was like a whirlwind I was putting around my son, and it felt like I was lifting him up and myself. I thought I was lifted up and floating in. It was so warm and so powerful. It just beautiful.
Yeah. So the next thing to do is, if you can get in touch with the people that you brought into that energy, ask them, what did they feel just before 12 o'clock today? Or have they felt any different today? Can you test it out? Just see if they picked up something that we did here at this time. That would be a good test, wouldn't it? And don't be disheartened if they say no, because if they're very deeply in pain or discomfort, they may not have. But you may just be surprised that when you ask them, they go, oh yeah, I did feel better. And that's all we needed to do to make a difference. So, do we have any questions that you'd like to put that we could discuss amongst ourselves? Not at all.
I do, actually. I seem to lose the borders when I do something like this. I go over the border and I keep trying to do more and more, although it's not me. But for example, now what we just did was perfect. I feel it was perfect. It felt right, it just felt right. I just know it. Now, I have a tendency to do more than that. And then at the end result, I'm then left like the cat holding the bag, I guess is the expression.
Well then, you need to keep a balance. Remember what we said, that we're here, we chose to come here to live a physical existence. And we'll have lots and lots of time in eternity. I would think, what are you going to do for eternity? Are there any good knitters here? You could knit a very long scarf for eternity, couldn't you? You know? You can't comprehend, can you, what you're going to do for the rest of eternity. So we have to focus on this bit. And we chose to come here to experience this life and to learn from it. So it's keeping a balance. It's bringing that into the physical existence, not forgetting the physical existence to go and focus on that and taking it over the top. Because, as I said, we'll have loads of time when we're finished with this physical existence to focus on other things. But for now, it's important to work with our life path, our chosen journey that we've taken, that we've made the decision to take. But just make it slightly different by remembering that we are still spirit here and now. We don't just suddenly jump out of the physical body and into a spirit body when we die. It's here now. And so it's keeping that connection to that source, but keeping it in balance as well. Like I said, we could all disappear into a monastery and go and be silent prayer. That wouldn't be for me. For those who want to do that, that's wonderful. And it is lovely sometimes to have a short retreat time where you can be still and be quiet. But we're here to live in this physical world. But it doesn't stop us from bringing that power into the physical existence, keeping the balance between the two and not going over the top. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So keep it at that kind of level.
Yeah.
Okay?
Exactly,
Yeah. Anybody like to share perhaps a time that you've yes?
I just wanted to say I was very interested in what you were saying about the SNUI and how you do this thing at night.
Yes.
And when I really started getting into my sort of meditation and stuff, I'd always, towards the end, just see sort of, or feel countries where there was a lot of trouble and be sending light to these countries. And it's like, you know, I was obviously
the only
being
thing
told,
I would say is that rather than to the country, because the country
well, I
itself,
see the people in the country.
yes,
you
we
know,
need to focus on, if we can, the source of the problem. Because it's not necessarily always the people that's the problem, it's what's around them. So if you can see what I mean, it's like an illness, you need to get to the cause, to the source of it, to deal with it. So if we know that there is a government that's making that happen, then we need to work
focus on
at that level, because it's the effects that the people are feeling, they're not necessarily the cause. Does that so that's the difference that we're trying to do, is work on the cause so that it begins then to
So it's actually sending that light
yes.
to these leaders and these
Yes.
evil people that really
Yes.
need it.
Yeah. So then hopefully we're going to manifest more care and compassion within them, instead of this desire to be powerful and doesn't matter about the people, to shift that focus. That's what that healing energy needs to do. Because to be fair, we wouldn't have all these displaced people if they could go back and be cared for properly in their own countries. So it's getting back to the cause to make a difference. And we can do this. This is the spirit world are very much asking us now to try to work with this power, because they are very concerned about the state of our world, just as we are. But they need us to work with that power, because it's our time in this world. We are the universal energy here. The evolutionary pathway of mankind is in our hands, just as it's been in other times in the hands of the people then. So it's what we make of it will take that evolutionary pathway where it goes. Does that make sense? Yeah. We can't just pass the buck to the spirit world. They've had their turn. It's our turn now.
The SNUI, so they do that at 10 o'clock every night?
Every night.
And it's like, and there's like a theme, this is where we're sending it out to tonight.
Yeah. What did you do this week, Stephen?
I did children on Friday.
Yeah, children in
Thursday,
India with AIDS,
yeah,
wasn't it?
I found some orphans in India all with AIDS, and they were practicing yoga. And then the day before I did animals.
Yeah, and the day before that I did the medicine, people who are discovering medicines, and then the night before that I did it on self-empowerment, self-healing, just similar to what we've done but with more time and willpower. So different people host it each night, and they will have a different theme.
So you just log in at 10
it's 10 o'clock, SNI. It's an open, you don't need a password to get in, it's open to anybody.
people that do it in more
Absolutely,
yeah.
Do you want to write the address on the board while I tell them
Yes,
a little bit?
please do that, yes.
Could you write, Jeanette, snui.org? Just write on the flip chart.
And you'd go to the tuition...
When you go to the home page, Jeanette will just write it down. Across the top it says something like home page, membership, tuition, or I think it says tuition programme.
Yes.
Click on that and scroll down, and it lists all the events, and you'll find that 2200 hours SIA, Spirit in Action, and there's a little button, go to classroom. You click on that, wait a few seconds depending on how fast or slow your internet is, takes you to a mega meeting facility with a box, and it says name, just put your name in, and then next takes you into it.
So you don't need a password, just a name, you've got any name you like it to come on.
You don't need to be a member to do that. Most of the classes that are listed, you have to be a member to go to it, but membership's only £21 a year anyway. But Spirit in Action, Spirit in Action is open access, no
Yeah.
membership required.
So it's at 10 o'clock every night. So if you scroll down the list of other classes that's 2200, click in there, takes you straight into the classroom. And every night we come together. Sometimes it's only a few, sometimes it's many, because it's people all over the world that come in, and we spend around and about 30 minutes. Sometimes we'll be a bit longer, just depends on what we're doing and what's happening there. And you can, when we've done something, you can type in, like I'm asking you now for your feedback. If you want, you can, so everybody's sharing and caring at the same time. Type in what you felt with whatever we've been doing. So it's worth coming along and getting involved. Because you feel you're doing it with other people.
Yeah.
And
it will also give you that time to focus and to use that energy.
Yeah.
You don't use it any other time of the day.
That's right. It gives you that 30 minutes in your day to take something for yourself as well. So it's a good thing to do.
There's also an absent healing page. You can add names of people, and we ask the membership. There's over 1,000 members, and we ask them to pray for them at a certain time of day of their own time zone. So, for example, if it's 10 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock somewhere in the world every hour. And with a worldwide membership, somebody on the hour everywhere is praying for those people.
So, are there any other... Yes, you'd like to say
I was
something.
just going to say, do you think that the power of prayer or action was evident around the result from Hillsborough?
I do, because I think so many people had continuously put efforts into that. And it is with many things. And it's our approach and attitude. It's like I said, using this idea, if we've got a person who we think is, I'll use a word I don't like to use, but we'll say evil, that they're destructive, that's a better word. You don't feel like you want to heal them, because why should you? They're destructive. But then we're defeating the object. So people who are fighting a cause such as that, if they become ill-willed and down, they're not doing anything. But if they can keep that positive approach, that if they can constantly keep believing that they can bring out, then that's the difference. And it's so easy to have this, to go into the negative without realising that you're doing it, just by the very virtue of life itself. But they didn't. They kept on and on, believing that they could bring about an outcome. And I think we can see that in many other situations where, for instance, where there have been people believing that someone was innocent, and eventually they've worked and that person has been found to be so, something's brought about. So it's the attitude, the belief in it, that makes it positive. I don't like, it's more constructive or non-constructive rather than positive and negative. But it's so easy to judge someone and think, I don't want to heal them because they're a bad person. But if we want to change what they're doing, then we've got to turn that around. And this God force, this power, is neutral. It's there to work in the way that we use it. And that's what's important, to recognise that. To recognise we are part of that God force. We are it present here. So the way we live our lives is the way we're using that power. And so, yeah, I'm sure that lots of things, without perhaps being the signature of, remember we said about challenges, it has someone else's signature on the gift tag. Lots of other signatures have been on things that maybe they haven't actually thought, God's doing this, but they've used that power in order to believe that they could make a difference. So yes, I agree with you. A long answer for a short question, wasn't it? Yes. Anyone else would like to comment? Yes.
Yeah, sometimes I send healing to people, as you say, that have been destructive in a way,
yes.
and to facilitate their change. Because sometimes these people, they go to their grave and they don't want to listen to change. Does that mean that they come back to earth to learn the lesson?
No, they have the opportunity to deal with that in the spirit world, and each person will deal with it individually. There's no set pattern. We're all individuals and we continue to be so. So they will have to make their decisions where they go from there, as to whether they need to come back and return to deal with it here, or whether they can deal with it in the world of spirit.